the night the walls whispered. In the small town of Cold Hollow, a family of 4 vanished without a trace in 1987. Their home stood untouched for weeks before neighbors grew suspicious. When authorities finally entered, they found a chilling scene. The walls were smeared with cryptic messages written in what appeared to be blood. Forensic analysis revealed the substance was, indeed, human blood, but from multiple different individuals. None of it belonged to the missing family. No bodies were ever found, and to this day, visitors to the abandoned house report hearing whispers at night, repeating the same eerie phrase, "We never left." The Butcher of Blackwood Motel. Blackwood Motel was a small roadside lodge known for its cheap rates and eerie atmosphere. In 2004, a string of disappearances plagued the motel. Guests checked in, but their luggage and cars were found untouched, with no sign of the people themselves. One day, a housekeeper stumbled upon a horrifying discovery. The floorboards in room 13 were loose, revealing a blood-soaked crawl space beneath. Inside, police discovered remains of at least 7 victims, their bodies mutilated with surgical precision. The motel owner, a former medical student who had mysteriously disappeared, was never found. The motel was shut down, but drifters who dare to stay in the ruins of Blackwood claimed to hear the sound of a knife sharpening in the dead of night. The shadows of Ashmore Asylum. Ashmore Asylum was once a sanctuary for the mentally ill, but quickly became a house of horrors when reports surfaced of gruesome experiments being conducted on patients. In 1956, the chief doctor was found murdered in his office, his mouth sewn shut, eyes wide open in an expression of eternal terror. Investigators determined the killer was one of the patients, but no one was ever convicted. Decades later, when urban explorers broke into the asylum, they found the words "See what I saw" carved into the doctor's desk. They left in a panic, but one member of the group was later found dead, his mouth sewn shut, just like the doctor's decades earlier. The watcher in room 41. In 1992, journalist Daniel Harris checked into an old Victorian hotel to cover a story about alleged hauntings. He never checked out. When staff entered room 41, they found his camcorder still recording, aimed at the corner of the room where nothing visible could be seen. When the tape was reviewed, the audio contained whispers in a language unknown to experts. Harris's body was never found, but the only clue left behind was a message on the mirror, written in condensation, "I'm watching." The Curse of the Hollow Creek Cabin. A group of college students rented a secluded cabin in the woods of Hollow Creek for a weekend getaway. On the first night, they found a diary belonging to a woman who had been brutally murdered there in 1978. The final entry read, "They're coming for me. I hear them in the walls." That same night, one of the students went missing. A frantic search ensued, but only his torn, bloodied clothing was found. Over the years, multiple disappearances have been linked to the cabin, yet authorities refuse to demolish it. The legend remains. If you hear whispers in the walls, it's already too late. The Silent House on Oakwood Street. In 1974, the Parker family moved into a quiet suburban neighborhood in Ohio, unaware that their dream home concealed a grim history. The previous owners, the Millers, had been found brutally murdered in their beds, their bodies arranged in a ritualistic manner. Their killer was never found. Weeks after settling in, the Parkers began experiencing strange occurrences, objects moving on their own, whispering voices in the dead of night, and an overwhelming sense of being watched. The youngest daughter, Lily, began speaking of a man with no face standing in the hallway. One fateful night, the Parkers' neighbors awoke to the sound of blood-curdling screams. When authorities arrived, they discovered a chilling scene. The entire family had been slaughtered in the same manner as the Millers. The walls were covered in cryptic messages written in blood, none of which made any logical sense. To this day, the house remains abandoned, as every attempt to sell it has ended in tragedy. The murderer, who called himself the Guest, between 1996 and 1998, a series of disturbing murders gripped the city of Austin, Texas. Each case followed the same pattern. The victims, families or individuals living alone, were found brutally slain in their homes with no signs of forced entry. The only clue left behind was a message written on a mirror in black marker. Thanks for having me. Investigators determined that the killer had been living in the victims' homes for days before the murders, hiding in attics, closets, or crawl spaces, emerging only when they were asleep. The thought of a stranger secretly residing within their walls terrified the entire community. Eventually, police arrested a drifter named Michael Garrison, who had been seen near several crime scenes. However, while awaiting trial, Garrison was found dead in his cell, his throat slit, and "Thanks for having me" written on the wall in his own blood. The murder stopped, but to this day, some believe the real killer was never caught. The vanishing at Ravenswood Hotel. The Ravenswood Hotel, a historic inn in London, gained notoriety after multiple guests vanished without a trace over the years. The most famous case occurred in 2003 when journalist Erica Lowe checked in to investigate the disappearances. She was last seen entering her room, number 405. The next morning, housekeeping found the door locked from the inside, but Erica was gone. Her belongings were untouched, her bed unmade, and the only thing out of place was a handwritten note on the desk that read, "Don't open the closet." Police searched the room extensively, but found no hidden exits. The closet was empty. Surveillance footage showed no one entering or leaving the room after Erica. She was never seen again. To this day, guests staying in room 405 report hearing scratching noises from inside the closet at night. The Lakewood Slaughterhouse. In 1952, a small town in Pennsylvania was rocked by a gruesome discovery. A long-abandoned slaughterhouse near Lakewood was found to be the burial site of at least 15 missing people. The victims had been brutally dismembered and placed inside the old meat lockers. The property once belonged to Charles Redford, a butcher known for his eccentric behavior. Redford had disappeared decades earlier, presumed dead. However, forensic evidence suggested that the murders occurred long after his supposed death. Witnesses claimed to have seen a figure resembling Redford lurking near the property late at night, but authorities dismissed these sightings as superstition. The slaughterhouse was demolished in 1960, but to this day, those who venture near the site report hearing the sound of chains rattling and muffled screams carried by the wind. The curse of the Blackwood Manor. In 1908, the wealthy Blackwood family was found murdered in their lavish mansion in Massachusetts. Each family member had been brutally stabbed, yet there was no sign of forced entry. The only living thing in the house was the family's black cat, sitting on the dining table, staring at the bodies. Over the years, multiple owners tried to renovate the house, but tragedy followed each attempt. Several workers died under mysterious circumstances, and one owner took his own life, scrawling the words, "It won't let me go," on the walls before his death. The house remains unoccupied, and locals claim to see lights flickering inside at night, though no one has lived there for decades. These terrifying true crime horror stories remain unsolved, leaving behind more questions than answers. Were these murders the work of something truly supernatural? Or is the real horror the unknown capabilities of the human mind? One thing is certain, evil